Welcome to me, where suspenseful, thrilling, and mysterious stories will draw you into a world where the lines between reality and fantasy seem to blur. When the night falls, when all the sounds gradually quiet down, leaving only your own heartbeat and breathing, that's when these stories begin. Tensions, unsolved mysteries, moments that will make you hold your breath in fear or curiosity, all are waiting for you ahead. Find a comfortable seat, dim the lights, and let this sound guide you on a journey that is not for the faint of heart. I want each of you to leave a comment sharing where you are in the world. And if you are enjoying the episodes, don't forget to give a like and subscribe to the channel now. Relax. Are you ready? If so, join me in the first story right now. Rambling Rose. I'm late! Life always passes over me. I'm late is just another phrase for situation normal. Absolutely fluffed up. Did you put in your application, Rosie? An unnecessary question, probably motivated by a sense of duty. I give my usual frown and grimace, a sigh, an I don't care, but will try to appear concerned look. The office crew is sniffing each other out. They're silently musing on the expected unfairness, their anticipated realization of failure, judging nepotism or brown-nosing from each participant. Jones, from service and repair, has been studying his policies. Gretel has finished her Certificate 4 in admin. Will is confident and also disgruntled because he has been at the WAM desk for 3 years and feels he deserves the promotion. Georgia has made coffee for the PA to the director every day for the last 2 months, and today has homemade chocolate brownies. The bright young things wander confidently, secretive, holding clipboards, adjusting their ties and hair clips. It's a yearly raise of $20K, and not to be ignored. But I most studiously ignored it. The primitive yearning for some freedom has snared its unrealistic teeth right into my IT life. Hell, I don't even know what the word means. I haven't read Jack Kerouac, but sense that this might be one of life's moments when Kerouac isn't just a writer. Kerouac is where I want to be. Pens, wads of reports, tea bags, coffee bags, a banana already populated with several tiny Drosophilas, laptop charger, some screwed up piece of something, possibly a chocolate wrapper. Everything into the locker. Close the door tightly before anything falls out. There may be war once the position is filled. It's a late winter, but June in the Highlands is starkly beautiful, misty, haunting even. The trains have all left, and I park my red Subaru into a free parking lot. The sky is an empty gray slate, and the new moon barely lights the smooth concrete platform. I walk carefully to the graveled exit, look into the darkness, and start walking beside highway number 1. Nobody would know if I am man or woman, as my hair is tucked into a black beanie. Nobody will try to stop for me, and I swagger, trying to look dangerous and unwelcome. My wind jacket is old and barely covers my hips. My tracky Dax, gray, also old. Just another vagabond itinerant wandering the roads. I step purposefully, too quickly, and slow myself. The journey, not the destination, I say. The crunch of the gravel beneath my rubber-soled gym shoes is satisfying. Each step releases its perfume of rain, oil, and petrol. I breathe its nourishment like a 4-year-old who has escaped from the front yard onto the street for the first time. A dog howls and then barks, and the cars gradually dissipate. At some point, I realize I am alone, even from any flow of traffic. It is 11 p.m. I have been walking for 3 hours. I breathe even more deeply. The air has chilled. A faint silhouette of bushland lines the horizon, and a small window twinkles somewhere on a hillside. As I walk, this small, friendly light disappears behind a ridge. A kookaburra announces something. It's time we all just went to sleep now. I will keep walking. I will keep walking until I want to stop. More hours pass by as I contemplate the stiffness in my calves, the ache in my arches, and the spots where my jacket does not cover my legs properly. The sky has started to reveal stars, hundreds of different sized lights, satellites drifting through them. Betelgeuse and Sirius, Pleiades, Orion's belt, familiar sky landmarks that are warm to the touch. Homey reminders that I am not completely out of my mind. Excitement suddenly makes me look up and revel in the starry expanse. Some loose barbed wire behind a ditch at the side of the road looks promising, and I duck through it. I am starting to feel tired. An irrigation ditch with straight sides has been carved into the bare landscape, its straight sides starkly incongruent with the rocky outcrops and overgrazed land. A breeze has started up, and snow must have fallen in the mountains as the wind is cold. I lie carefully in the ditch, careful not to wet my shoes, marveling at the convenience of a raised bed, however hard. Staring into the skies, I think, this is where I should have an epiphany. But what will it be? I am a traveler, a nomad, a gypsy on the road. This is where enlightenment and realization comes from. The cold is biting deep, and I cover spots alternatively when the pain gets too much. First my knees, then my torso, but never everything all at once. Looking imploringly into the stars, I let all sense of self leave me, my mind floating into that vast canopy. The cold makes me feel a bit sorry for myself, and I feel not just alone, but lonely. I think I slept, my icy dreams interspersed with awkward rearranging of the useless wind jacket. the romance of my zero-gravity bed. Just a cold, hard slant with pointy pebbles pressing into my back and hips, a crackle of nearby dried grass, the swoosh of saltbush being brushed past, a movement so close that I lose my breath in terror. I jolted awake. Was this near where those hitchhikers had disappeared? What if there was a man with a hatchet studying me, waiting for me, a gun, an intent to harm me? My heart was in my ears, and I breathed noiselessly, trying to stop breathing so fast. I sink into the hard clay. Just another boulder. Nobody here. After a half hour of immobile silence, it seemed that the killer would have moved by now. But I slowly lifted my chin to survey what was behind me, above the ditch, expecting any moment my life could be taken from me. A snort in my ear, and a scuffle from all around where my head lay. A dozen sheep were startled from where they had been staring at me. They stood back, gazing at the intruder, and slowly backed off. I was safe. The sheep were my friends, my protectors. They trotted away quickly now that it was obvious what this warm, soft-bodied thing was. I stayed the next 2 days in a rented room, happily proud of the adventure. I even called Jones and congratulated him on his new interest in company policy. Surely this point will be noted by management as a sign he is a contender in the offing. We agreed that it was a done deal. Georgia's coffee making was obsequiously good, and she was probably sleeping with the director anyway. I comforted Gretel and said she was far prettier than Georgia and had ethics, which Georgia patently did not. I put my hand on Will's shoulder and smiled. He'd get there soon, and was deserving. I might even explain my journey to Jones one day, but thought the better of it. I don't think he would understand. I barely could make sense of it myself. Mine Cole didn't know if he was asleep or awake until he heard someone cough. Then began the incessant striking of hammer on stone. Earl, the foreman, had set up shifts for everyone. He'd said, "Keep pounding. Let them know we're still here. Alive." There was no light. None. Not a glimmer. Everything felt dreamlike. Only Cole's dreams felt real. They played out in daylight. How long since the cave-in? Time had lost meaning. It felt like forever, or an hour ago. He'd startle awake and wonder where he was. Then remember, how long had he slept? A few minutes? Days? His watch was accurate. Give or take 12 hours. Memories blended with reality. Hunger marked time's passing, rolling against gritty stone. He sat up. Hearing others move reminded him there were others. And so far, they had survived. At least the dust had settled. After the collapse, choking dust hung in the air forever. They thought their lungs would never clear. For a long time, whenever someone switched on their lantern, everything looked smoky. Eventually, their coughing stopped. Had it been tights? Earl knew, but didn't want them focusing on that. He'd spent his life in the mines. If anyone asked, Earl would tell them he cut his teeth on a chunk of coal. After the cave-in, he told himself, this is the end. I get out alive. I'm gone. After the initial shock, they could only wait and hope a rescue party would find them before. When the tunnel collapsed, so much happened at once. The screams, the groans, the terror, the chaos. They would all have died had Earl not kept them focused. After a few rushed to escape and got caught in the collapse, his shouted orders stopped the panic. They heard their screams, but could do nothing. There wasn't time. Their equipment was inadequate, couldn't save themselves. The silence that followed gave them chills. The survivors pulled Jed from the rubble. He couldn't walk. They cleared a level spot for him. Using his medical training, Earl directed the others. He stopped Jed's bleeding, but setting broken bones with improvised splints was painful and difficult. They gave him precious water, Earl said. Hope he gets professional help before they set. He knew they would need to re-break them once he got to a hospital. Reality settled. Rescue could take days, might never get out. The prospect of starvation loomed. Earl counted heads. Besides himself, 4 others survived. Sonny, Jed, Cole, and Roman. All but Sonny had grown up together. Their fathers all came from the mines. The collapse came in the morning, so they had food and water. Stow your kits and gear, he said. Once you're secured, douse your lanterns. Save the batteries. The guys were hungry. Earl said, husband your resources, guys. Don't gobble it all at once. Make it last. Maybe down here a while. Earl organized shifts for them. They were to strike stone with a hammer in the Morse code SOS distress signal. Earl handed Cole a pick and pointed to the wall. You start. Someone'll spell you in an hour. Signal 'em that we're alive and waiting. Cole found comfort at the wall. Activity filled the time. He felt useful. It amazed him how things become routine, even in the most primitive circumstances. While each took their turn at the wall, the others sat together in the dark, sharing stories. Sometimes they even laughed in the face of their plight. After a while, Roman began to weep. Hearing his sobs in the dark unsettled the others. A giant of a man. Everyone saw him as stoic, a man of action. He would take on any task. No one expected blubbering about his wife and kids. Now, he despaired. In the darkness, his mask of strength invisible, he revealed himself. Their situation was undeniable. At the wall with the SOS, Cole tried to drown out Roman's sobs. Roman couldn't stifle his tears. His sobs became wails. Earl said, I know it looks bad, man, but you'll be home in a day or two. With a constricted voice, Roman tried to explain. She counts on me. What'll May do if I'm not there for her? She worries. Says, be sure to come home. What can I do without you? Says the kids cry when I'm late. There was nothing to say. Roman's sobs subsided into labored breathing. It was impossible, but the darkness seemed even blacker. Lacking sight, their sense of hearing sharpened. Each man recognized the personal signature of anyone's slight movement. The darkness did not obscure anyone's location. Hours passed. They drifted in and out of consciousness until their turn to hammer. The SOS came. Anyone have any extra? I'm starving. It was Cole. No one responded. Earl said, told you not to, wolf man. Come on, guys. Someone must have something. You know I'd share with you. Cole turned on his lamp. He stood over Sonny. I knew it. A stream of profanity flooded out. Others leaped to restrain him. Sonny said, it's mine, man. I didn't take yours. You're hoarding, man. That food belongs to everyone. Earl stepped up, and Cole calmed. What's up, Sonny? Whose kits are those? Sonny said, no one's hammering. Whose shift is it? They're gonna think we're dead. Answer the question. I found 'em, Earl. Didn't steal 'em. Left behind by the others? Yeah, Sam and Gordy. The others who booked. They won't be back. I took them for safekeeping. Everyone looked at him in silence. Finally, he handed a kit to Cole. Earl said, Roman, do an inventory on everyone's victuals. Make sure there's an even distribution. That seemed to satisfy everyone. Earl said, who's on SOS? Gotta keep the signal up. Don't want them giving up the search. Roman said, I'm up. You keep doing inventory. Sonny, get to it. Things settled after that. Everyone took their turn on SOS. There was less conversation. Everyone kept to themselves. They never knew if their signals were heard. The overhead rumblings of excavation paused. When it resumed, it seemed more distant. Cole asked Earl, they know where we are. What's taking so long? They quitting? The cave-in exposed unstable strata. Aggressive digging could loosen it, bring it all down. Don't want to lose us to their haste. That's why they don't blast? Right. They could only keep signaling. And hope. Hours passed. Their existence settled into a narrow routine. Those not hammering the wall slept or booled fitfully, kept awake by Jed's groans. Everyone knew he was still alive. No one knew when Jed would scream. Ghosts tormented him. Earl tried to calm him, but there was nothing to give him. Everyone put up with it. Had days passed? Cole awoke from unsettled sleep. He tipped his canteen up and found it empty. He said, when we're back up top, if I ever suggest going camping, somebody please kill me. Others laughed. Sonny said, we're already dead, just don't know it yet. Earl said, shut up, don't start that. Sonny said, it's true. We'll never get out. All that's left is arranging ourselves for the grave we're already resting in. Roman said, they're searching. Need to be patient. Sonny said, give it up. You know I'm right. Earl said. "You're not helping. Whining does nothing. I'll whine if I want." "You gonna kill me?" "I'm already dead," Cole said. "When they pull me out of here, I'll tell them to leave you behind, that you gave up, cried until you died." They heard a clatter of rocks. A punch glanced off Cole's face. If Sonny had seen his target, it would have hurt more. Screaming with rage, Cole threw himself at his attacker. They fell into the rubble. Earl yelled, "Stop!" They threw punches and grappled. Their thrashing sounded like animals. Earl switched on his lantern. He stood over the two. Sonny had bloodied Cole's face. Earl kicked Sonny's head, sending him to the cave floor. Sonny yelled, "I'll kill you!" "Listen!" Roman stopped hammering. Earl doused his light. The sound of pneumatic drills was close. Brakes led to increased activity. Everyone stepped back from the rubble, blocking the tunnel opening. Dust stirred, making them cough. Stones shifted and rolled to their feet. Cole and Roman dodged a boulder coming to rest between them. They laughed nervously. After several minutes of tense silence, light pierced the darkness. The five cheered as one. Even Jed joined in. Shouting and jumping, they couldn't stop. A large stone broke free and rolled from the tunnel entrance, bathing the cavern in light. They'd been saved. A lively souvenir. A lively souvenir. We were on very good terms with our neighbors of about 4 years in our San Diego, California neighborhood. We invite each other over for barbecues, and Joe and I frequently sit in front of a TV somewhere on Sundays to watch a football game or two. Our wives, Annette and Ellie, are in a book club together, work out at LA Fitness, and enjoy poetry reading events. Last summer, we upgraded our backyard and had a pool put in. Nothing massive, just your standard 16 at 32 family pool. It was quite the hangout for both our families. Joe and Elle recently returned from visiting family in Gainesville, Florida. We all convened at their back patio for the celebratory end of their vacation, to sip mimosas and Hefeweizens while they gave us all the highlights of their trip. They were excited about the resort they visited and the swampland tours they took there. They were like big kids, describing how the airboat driver whipped them through the swamp, even giving them an extra thrill by Tokyo drifting on the sharp turns. "Sounds like a lot of fun," Annette replied. "Well, that's not the best part. We've found a bit of a souvenir." "Really?" "Oh yeah," Joe said proudly. "I'll get it. I'll get it," Ellie said as she disappeared into the house. "I know initially you guys are going to think we're nuts, but I assure you, this is going to be great." "Wow, Joe," Donald said. "This is quite the build-up. The anticipation is killing us over here." Right then, Ellie emerged with a mid-sized glass tank. "Wah!" Donald exclaimed. He can't believe what he's seeing. "No way! You guys can't be serious," said Annette. "That's crazy, guys." In the glass case, there was a 2.5-foot alligator. "Isn't he beautiful?" Ellie beamed. "He's already grown a couple of inches since we've been back." "Whoa, I was actually thinking you brought back a snake or maybe an iguana. But you went all the way back to the evolutionary source. A fucking alligator, Dawn said. No way this is safe. Elle, no way, Annette cautioned. She was concerned, and her voice shook with emotion as she tried to implore her friend to abandon this idea. This thing is gonna grow and eat you guys. No, this is a terrible idea, sweetie. No, it's okay. We thought this through, John explained, and made an informed decision. This wasn't an impulse buy. I don't know, buddy. It looks like an impulse buy with teeth. Dawn chided them. They all laughed, except Annette. How did you even come across somebody selling an alligator, Joe? I mean, I know it's Florida, but people aren't just selling these at the 7-Eleven. She asked. Joe explained how part of the habitat tour involved observing the local wildlife, including gators. They also breed them there. This alligator was part of a litter that was to be raised within the wildlife preserve, but unfortunately, it was a runt. He was too small to compete with his siblings for food, and eventually they would turn on him and consume him as well. The staff were going to have to put him down. This completely exacerbated Ellie, and after some conversation, a disclaimer, and cash, she somehow convinced the preserve owner to allow them to take the little guy with them. And you were okay with this, Joe? Dawn asked incredulously. Joe shrugged his shoulders. I didn't see any issues with it being so small right now. I guess I kinda kicked the can down the road as far dealing with him getting to be full-sized. As it was explained to us, they are very loyal and highly intelligent. Once domesticated, they are just like dogs or goats. Wait, Annette asked. How did you get it on the plane? Well, the preserve owner wrapped it for travel and fed it, and we just added wet towels over it and placed it in our checked bags. You ran it through baggage claim? Have you seen how they treat those suitcases? Dawn asked, almost laughing in disbelief. Oh, yes. And I was so worried about the little guy. I could hardly contain my anxiety the whole flight. I hoped he wasn't too scared. I told her, hey, honey, it's a reptile. They're not scared of anything. My wife and I stood there, perplexed. This has got to be the dumbest idea in the history of dumb ideas. Yet here they sat, two highly educated adults carrying on about one of the most dangerous animals on the planet, like it's a long-haired lab puppy. I have to ask some grown-up questions. I steal a glance at my wife with a raised eyebrow, and she shrugs, effectively giving me the go-ahead. Joe? Firstly, how in the world do you domesticate an alligator? Is there like a shock collar? Here, when I zap you, it means don't bite my finger off? I mean, come on. Ah, ha, ha. I hear the sarcasm, Dawn. No. As you feed him, he gets used to your scent and your presence. He begins to associate you with food and satisfaction. It's all positive reinforcement. He bonds with you. Yeah, just like a dog, like we said. He won't bite the hand that feeds him silly. Ellie chimed in. He eats chicken, mostly. But we can throw in some fish, rodents, steak, and even pork, to give him a variety. They guy gave us a pamphlet for use as a reference, so you read Alligators for Dummies. And you think that prepared you? Annette asked. I can't believe I'm hearing this. Did you say rodents? You feed it rodents? Are you going to buy a shoebox full of mice and dump it in his glass case? Oh, don't be so crude, Don. Of course not, Joe said nervously, as he rubbed the back of his neck. Well, not exactly a box full. You really are going to go through with this? How long before he grows up to be a fully carnivorous reptile? There's some exotic animal farms around. We can relocate him too, when the time comes. For a fee, they'll come and collect him, humanely, of course, and he'll live out his days at the California Preserve. Dude, is this even legal in California? Can animal control fine you or come confiscate it? Well, it's an ask for forgiveness instead of permission kind of thing. We aren't breeding it or selling it for a profit, so therefore it's characterized as an exotic pet, in my opinion. It's no more illegal that Tyson having a tiger or Michael Jackson having a chimpanzee. But this is an alligator, Joe. Annette pleaded outwardly with her friends. This is a cold-blooded beast. Every incident I have ever seen involves an alligator snapping, its jaws shut on some unsuspecting body part of the owner or trainer. We are trying to get you to see that this will end badly. You and Ellie are putting yourselves in danger. Annette's hands were on her hips, as she's clearly frustrated. We can't seem to talk any sense into our friends. Look, guys, I hear you, but we'll be fine. Come here. Joe stood and put his arms out, and he, Don, and Annette had a group hug. Aw, there. That's so much better, Ellie said. I know. We appreciate your concern. You're good friends, and you have raised some thoughtful questions, and I would expect no less. But friends, don't worry. This is gonna be a great experience. Alex and us will grow to be... Wait, Dawn interrupted. Alex? Alex Alligator? Really, Joe? It absolutely fit like a glove. And when I called him that, his little eyelids flipped. I think he likes it, Ellie added. She reached in and stroked the back of its head. You want to hold it? Here, it's okay. Let me just get him situated. She set the glass case on the table and reached in and grabbed its tail with her right hand and slid her left hand forward to grasp it under its jaw. But something must have spooked it. It let out a high-pitched snarl and spun its head, and with its tiny but razor-sharp teeth clamped down on Ellie's forefinger and thumb. Blood immediately spurted outward as Ellie screamed and knocked the glass case off the table, which exploded when it hit the patio. Alex didn't fall. However, he hung on to Ellie's flesh, dangling and thrashing with all its body weight, as if trying to rend her flesh from her. Blood started squirting out of its jaws as it whipped its body from side to side. Ellie grabbed at it and tried to pull it off, but it was dug in, and she screamed even louder. Joe grabbed its body and pulled, but it was clamped down deep, and pulling it made the flesh of Ellie's thumb started to rip from her hand, making her cry out more. Ellie collapsed onto the patio, screaming incoherently, as the gator's face was now bright red with the free-flowing blood from Ellie's mangled hand. Annette grabbed a big hunk of glass and began hitting it on its head. 1 blow, 2 blows, 3 blows. Finally, the gator released its grip, rolled over onto the patio, and scurried away. "Oh, Ellie, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," Joe said as he pulled off his shirt and attempted to stem the flow of blood from Ellie's marred flesh. Her thumb was only hanging on by 2 tendons, and half the flesh from her index finger was tattered and torn. He wrapped it up with his shirt. "Dawn, put pressure here, please," Joe said, almost in tears. Annette had both hands covering her mouth and was wide-eyed with disbelief as Ellie moaned and cradled her hand. She was growing visibly pale and going into shock, no doubt. Joe called 911 while Annette comforted Ellie. Dawn quietly wondered if they'd be able to save her thumb or not. How could this thing have turned so deadly so fast? Shit, he thought. Speaking of deadly, where is that little fucker? Joe, did you see where it went? No, I didn't. The little bastard's probably terrified, hiding in some cubby hole somewhere. The dispatcher is sending animal control, but maybe we can bag it before it gets away. Damn, I fucked up, Dawn. I'm such a fuck-up, he said in a frustrated tone. What was I thinking? Hey, let's focus. No time for that now, buddy. I'll run to my house and get a spotlight real quick. So Dawn went out their back fence and crossed over onto his property. He unlatched the back fence and headed for his tool shed on the other side of the pool, when lo, and behold, there was Alex. He was casually floating in their pool. There was a red stain afloat around him, apparently Ellie's blood. But Alex was totally oblivious to the carnage he caused. He's merely enjoying the cool water. Dawn doesn't know why, but he thought about the story of the scorpion and the frog. What did they expect? He's an alligator. As Dawn approached the pool, Alex seemed to sense his presence and slowly paddled towards the edge of the pool towards Dawn. Wait, what's this? What are you doing, little guy? It turned, its body exposing its tail, and made a cooing sound. Please don't let this be the second dumbest thing that happens today. Dawn squatted down and gently reached under the gator and scooped it up, holding it under its head and tail. He made sure to keep a firm grip on Alex and not expose any appendages that may trigger it. You need to be with your own kind, runt or not. He actually kinda liked the little guy, But yeah, it's time to go. You've caused enough trouble today. He heard the sirens approaching and headed back to Joe's house, Banshee. The soft cushions of the leather couch cradled Kim's sweaty body. Her vision was fuzzy and dark, like looking through smudged sunglasses. She blinked rapidly, hoping to remedy her skewed sight. Then she heard voices, male and female. Yes, I did call 911. She needs to get better mascara. There's no way that was mascara. Kim recognized those voices. She must be on the couch in her office. But why? Well, what could it have been? Never heard anyone scream like that before. I know. It was unnatural. She must have had some kind of seizure. Yeah, it seemed her dog sensed it was going to happen. Oh, definitely. Don't worry, Kim. I'll take care of Groot while you're at the hospital. You won't believe this, but I had my first hot flash last night. It was so disgusting. Kim wasn't sure if that was TMI, but she was the broker and founder of this real estate firm, so she had the right to say whatever in the hell she wanted. However, she did find it uncomfortable to talk about. She just couldn't stop thinking about last night's sweat fest. When did you have your last period? Shelley asked. Kim scanned the faces of the 12-member team of real estate agents gathered at the conference table. Mostly men. Men didn't want to talk about this crap. Kim had never felt comfortable talking about female plumbing issues either. And this was not the time, nor the place, nor the company to speak of such things. She shouldn't have started this conversation. Just not thinking clearly today. Moving on. Jeffrey, you have a new listing? Subject changed. Every day was Bring Your Dog to Work Day. Kim brought Groot, a 2-year-old male Wheaton Terrier. Other team members brought their dogs as well, and all the canines got along. During the Monday meeting, Groot lay in his bed behind Kim's chair at the head of the table. Suddenly, he started whining, high-pitched and annoying. All conversation stopped. Groot went to Kim and pawed at her lap, still whining. She rubbed his head. What is it? What's... Kim sucked in a loud breath, stood straight up, as if her spine had instantly become a metal rod. Then she started a low, guttural growl. She began to drool, long strands of saliva slinking from the corners of her mouth. People gasped. Kim faced the table, placed her hands on it, and crawled on top. She sat on her heels, stretched her torso and arms forward, and pointed at Jeffrey, who was seated at the other end of the table. Her index fingers were side by side, lips parted, teeth gnashing. Kim let out a shriek that had the agents covering their ears. Thick, black tears oozed from her eyes, made mad streaks down her ruddy cheeks, and dribbled onto the table like globs of old motor oil. All the dogs in the building barked. Most of the agents sped from the room. Jeffrey plastered himself against the wall behind his seat and stared at Kim, his eyes and mouth wide open. The shriek lasted for at least 60 seconds. Kim collapsed onto the table, At the hospital, Kim was informed that her scans were clear. The results from the cultures of the tears would take a few days to come back. The doctor had no answers for her regarding the shriek. She stayed overnight and then went home at 10:25 a.m. Kim had just put on pajamas and was ready to relax when she received a phone call from Shelley, one that put her in a fetal position. Heading south on I-85 in his very expensive, high-performance BMW, Jeffrey was breaking the speed limit, 10 miles over. It was no big deal, but it was raining. He was in the fast lane, as always. He rarely got to drive his car the way he wanted. It could go from 0-60 in under 3 seconds. Jeffrey eyed the long stretch of asphalt ahead of him and listened to Hush by Deep Purple, as loud as the car's sound system would allow. He was about to gun it when he saw a sedan slide from the northbound lane, coast through the grassy median, and head straight for him. Shit! Jeffrey stepped on the gas. The sliding car missed him, but wrecked into the truck behind him. Looking in his rearview mirror at the carnage of the colliding metal and glass, Jeffrey yelled, "Holy hell!" That's when he started to lose control of his vehicle, zigzagging, the road water washing up onto his windows from the right and the left. And then everything in Jeffrey's world stopped. At home, Kim sat on her sofa, weeping. Her father sat beside her, hugging her shoulders. "I can't believe this." "I know," said Marcus. Then he let out a hefty sigh. "I have something to tell you." "What?" "It's about your mother." Kim scowled at her father. They never talked about her mother. "It's about her death." "You want to talk about that now?" "Yes. It relates to all you're going through." "What? How?" Marcus covered his eyes with his hand. "How do I put this? Your mother suffered from the same affliction you're suffering from now." He looked directly at her. The shriek, the black tears. "You're what is known as a banshee." Kim stared at him as if he had grown another head. "That's not funny, Dad. I'm totally serious. Banshees shriek at people who are about to die. It's why your mother killed herself." She took a good, long look at his aged, hard-lined face. He wasn't lying. She should be mad that he hadn't told her this long ago. She wasn't. Couldn't be. She was too numb and too tired to feel anger toward him. Be prepared. People at work will stare at you. They'll talk about you, wonder things about you, even be afraid of you. Is that what happened to Mom? Yes. She began to cry again. "I'm so sorry, honey." After 10 minutes of weeping, Kim drank the hot tea her father had made. Groot went to her and sat beside her on the couch, which reminded her, "Dad, Groot whined at me just before it happened." "Yeah, nearby animals can sense the episodes before they happen. Don't know why. I've done a lot of research, but haven't determined why that happens." "What all have you discovered in your research?" "Well, that only women are banshees, that it starts at menopause, that you'll be a banshee until you die. Fantastic. Didn't you know this was going to happen to me? We hoped it wouldn't. Your mother's mother said it might skip a generation. Hey, well, guess what? She sipped her tea. You should have warned me. I'm so very sorry. Marcus kissed his daughter's forehead. But seriously, what good would that have done? Kim thought about that. Her only response to his question was a shrug. Kim stood in the bathroom, blowing her nose. Her father had left a few minutes ago. She was still struggling to process all he had told her, and she was seriously thinking of retiring to avoid everyone at work. She could do it. Then there was Jeffrey to think about. His funeral. Damn it. This was all too much. She had worked so hard to get to where she was in life. A multi-millionaire at age 30. One of the premier real estate brokers in Greenville, South Carolina. Now she was... what? Some kind of supernatural being? Seriously? She had so many things she still wanted to do with her career, her personal life, and perhaps with Jeffrey. Had her mother experienced similar disappointments? Kim began to cry again, but then Groot came into the bathroom and started whining. That high-pitched, annoying whine. And he pawed at her. What the hell? Kim looked at herself in the mirror. Big eyes, gritted teeth, drooling. Then the clear tears became thick and black. She pointed at herself. I wasn't expecting that. And then the shriek, like a breath of cold air. By December, Montreal was buried under a heavy coat of snow that had been piling up since late October. Gray slush lined the streets, the result of salt and traffic grinding the once pristine snow into a dirty, icy mess. The biting cold cut through even the thickest coats, and the endless scraping of shovels and snowplows provided a constant backdrop to city life. Holiday decorations were everywhere, but their cheer felt commercial. More of a reminder to spend money than a celebration. The air smelled faintly of exhaust and wet wool, the kind of scent that lingered in crowded metro stations and poorly insulated homes. Yet, as Veronique walked through the city streets, her boots crunching against the fresh snow, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. She'd always loved the holidays. As a child, she'd marveled at the shimmering decorations, the sound of boots crunching against ice, and the occasional scent of poutine wafting from nearby diners. But this year, the joy seemed oddly hollow, as if it were a beautiful facade masking something dark and unspoken. She paused at the corner by Sherbrooke, her breath curling in front of her in frosty puffs. It wasn't just the odd unease she'd felt all week. There were other signs, too. Small things that would have gone unnoticed if she weren't already on edge. Like the fact that the street lights on Peel Street flickered every time she passed, even though they stayed steady for everyone else. Or the elderly woman at the grocery store who stared at her just a little too long, her milky eyes narrowing in suspicion before she hurried away. Then there was the panhandler. Brian had been a fixture outside McGill University's McLennan Library for as long as Veronique could remember. Now in her 3rd year, she'd often passed him on her way to classes. Wrapped in layers of tattered coats and scarves, he was well known among the students, who occasionally dropped coins into his cup. Brian had a reputation for getting himself thrown in jail during the harshest nights of winter. A desperate but effective way to stay warm. Last year, however, everything had changed. Brian had started muttering about the Winter Watcher, claiming to have seen him lurking in the city. His stories grew more frantic, and the locals dismissed him as crazy. Then, one night, Brian's body had been found in an alley, his lifeless form curled against the icy ground. Officially, it was chalked up to exposure, but his wild claims lingered in Veronique's mind. Lately, she'd been seeing Brian again, or at least she thought she had. Every time Veronique walked by the library, he'd be sitting there, looking directly at her, his eyes impossibly sharp and knowing. But no one else seemed to notice him. When she asked Tara, her friend had just laughed nervously. "Brian's been gone for a year, Veronique. Maybe you're just remembering him." And when she glanced back, it was as if he'd vanished into thin air. "Get a grip," Veronique muttered to herself, pulling her scarf tighter around her neck. She glanced around the bustling street. Everything looked perfectly ordinary. People bustled into malls or hurried underground into the metro system to escape the biting wind. And yet, she still felt the weight of something looming just beyond reach. She turned toward Upstairs Jazz Bar and Grill on Bishop Street, a cozy spot where she could grab a reasonably priced lunch and momentarily escape the cold. As she walked, she couldn't shake the nagging sensation that Brian's ghostly presence had followed her. Even now, she felt as if a pair of eyes were drilling into her back, though every glance over her shoulder revealed nothing but bustling pedestrians. The regular waiter, Roman, who hailed from Poland, greeted her with a familiar nod. People like Roman weren't called baristas in the 1990s, but he knew her usual order by heart. "The usual, Veronique?" Roman asked, already reaching for a menu, but knowing she probably wouldn't need it. Veronique nodded, offering a half smile. She found a seat near the small stage, cradling her coffee as jazz music played softly in the background, its warmth seeping into her hands. She stared out at the bustling street, searching for what? She didn't know, but the feeling of being watched pressed against her back, making her fidget in her chair. "You okay?" Roman's voice startled her. He had appeared beside her, his concern etched across his features. "Yeah, I'm fine," Veronique said quickly. "Just tired, I guess." Roman hesitated, then nodded. "Well, let me know if you need anything." When he walked away, Veronique caught sight of something in the reflection of the window. The panhandler from outside the library, standing still as stone on the opposite side of the street. She whipped her head around, but the spot was empty. The crowd moved on, oblivious. Veronique's pulse quickened. She could have sworn she'd seen him. Not just anyone, either. It was unmistakably the same man. His ragged layers and piercing gaze haunted her thoughts. She shook her head, taking a long sip of her mocha. Maybe she was imagining things. That night, the whispers returned. Veronique lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her heart pounding in the dark. The murmurs were faint, but unmistakable, as if coming from the walls themselves. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice trembling. The whispers stopped abruptly, leaving the room in suffocating silence. Veronique reached for her phone, its glow a small comfort in the oppressive dark. She typed a quick text to her best friend, Tara. "I think I'm losing it." Weird noises in the house again. A reply came almost instantly. "Want me to come over?" Veronique hesitated. She didn't want to drag Tara into this. Whatever this was. "No, I'll be fine. Just needed to tell someone." She set the phone down and closed her eyes, willing sleep to come. When it finally did, her dreams were restless. A blur of faceless figures, snow turning crimson, and the sound of bells tolling deep and low. The next morning, Veronique decided she needed answers. If she didn't do something, the unease would consume her. She started with the McGill Library, its towering stone facade dusted with fresh snow. The interior smelled of aged paper and varnished wood. The librarian, Mrs. Haversham, greeted her with a kind smile. "Researching something special?" Veronique hesitated, unsure how to phrase her question without sounding unhinged. "Actually, have you ever heard of anything strange happening around here? Like weird stories or legends?" Mrs. Haversham's smile faltered. "Strange how? I don't know. Just things that don't feel right. Or people seeing things that aren't there." The librarian's gaze sharpened. She glanced around to make sure they were alone before leaning in. "You're not the first to ask questions like that. This city has its quirks, let's say, especially around this time of year." "What do you mean?" Veronique pressed, her pulse quickening. Mrs. Haversham hesitated. "There's an old story about someone called the Watcher. It's just a folk tale, of course, but some say he appears in times of great personal unrest. They say he watches, waiting for something. But here's the strange part. Only the one he's watching can see him." Veronique swallowed hard. "Have you seen him?" The librarian's face darkened. "No, and I hope I never do." That evening, Veronique found herself standing in her living room, staring at the Christmas tree she'd painstakingly decorated the week before. The ornaments gleamed under the soft glow of the fairy lights, but the sight brought her no comfort. Mrs. Haversham's words echoed in her mind. The Watcher. She'd looked up the story online when she got home. Most of the information was vague, but the consistent thread was that he appeared during moments of deep vulnerability, as if drawn to people who felt unseen themselves. The knock at the door made her jump. She turned, her heart racing. It was probably Tara, she told herself, though a chill crept over her as she remembered the last time she'd seen Brian. Was he outside again? Could ghosts knock? But when she opened the door, no one was there. Just the cold wind and the faint sound of carolers in the distance. She stepped outside, peering into the night. Snow fell softly, blanketing the world in an eerie stillness. Then she saw him, Brian, standing at the end of her driveway. There was no mistaking it. His tattered layers and unblinking stare were as vivid as they had been when he was alive. She wanted to call out, to demand answers, but her voice caught in her throat. The figure didn't move, only watching her with an intensity that froze her in place. Veronique's breath caught in her throat. She stumbled back inside, slamming the door and locking it. Her hands shook as she grabbed her phone to call Tara. But before she could dial, the whispers started again, louder this time, surrounding her. She clamped her hands over her ears, but it was no use. The lights flickered. Then, with a final, shuddering gasp, they went out. In the darkness, Veronique felt the weight of his presence. She didn't need to see him to know he was there, just beyond the door, watching, waiting, and for the first time, she understood what he wanted. Her. The next morning, Veronique's house stood as it always had, its cheerful decorations a stark contrast to the unease that lingered in the air. Neighbors passed by, unaware of what had transpired within those walls. But Veronique was gone, leaving behind only faint footprints in the snow leading toward the city streets. And in Montreal's busy streets, the holiday festivities carried on. But every so often, someone would pause, glancing over their shoulder, a fleeting sense of being watched brushing against their mind before disappearing like a breath of cold air. A day to remember. Francina Tutiliogi sat up in bed, holding on to dear life the photo of the man who melted her heart, Troy Edwards. It was the night before the big day, the biggest day in her life, where she was going to walk down that aisle and say, "I do," officially becoming Mrs. Troy Edwards. It was the moment her family had been awaiting, including all her cousins, distant and close, from all over the town. As she glanced at the photo of the striking young man, his golden hair that was slicked back and ocean blue eyes that possessed serenity in them, with whom she'd spend the rest of her life. She sighed dreamily as she began to reminisce about the first time they laid eyes on each other. 1 year ago, during the summer, Troy was a student at the University of Cambridge studying English when he was offered a study abroad program that gave him the opportunity to travel to Italy. The summer program lasted for 7 weeks, and it was during one of those 7 weeks when he made a chance encounter with Francina. She was making her way back home from grocery shopping, and he was trying to find the best restaurant in town. She bumped into him, both hands carrying bags filled with vegetables and other ingredients for dinner, with a carrot falling to the ground. He picked it up for her, and when she looked up, she was enthralled by what she saw. With a sheepish grin, he spoke to her in flawless Italian, asking her for directions to the nearest restaurant for dinner. She laughed, replying to him in Italian that she could speak English as well, and she invited him to dine with her and her family so that he was not alone. Leave it to Francina to show generosity to a complete stranger, especially to an Englishman as good-looking as Troy was, with his sexy accent. She liked that he made an effort to communicate with her in Italian. Not many foreigners, yet alone Americans, would have gone out of their way to do that. Troy followed Francina to her home, where she introduced him to her family. He shook hands with Francina's father, Marco, and her mother, Martina. He also got to know her cousins, Elisa, Paolo, and Natalia, as well as her maternal grandparents, Rosa Maria and Giuseppe. Francina did not have any siblings, so her cousins were like the siblings she'd never had. Troy was an only child as well, so this was the first thing that bonded them as something they had in common. Despite Marco's protectiveness of his only daughter interacting with a man who was not Italian, he still got along with Troy, as did the rest of the family. Troy was a pleasant guest, and he was able to tell the family about who he was. They were impressed by his academic background and his flawless Italian, which eased the initial tensions between them when they encouraged him to speak English to them. Francina was impressed by Troy's ability to charm her family, and for the first time in her life, she fell in love without even realizing it. He charmed his way into her heart, and she wanted to make sure he never forgot. So, when dinner was over and he was getting ready to leave, Francina walked Troy out and thanked him for his company. "I hope to see you again sometime soon," she said. "I'll see what I can do." He gave her that unforgettable smile before he left, and Francina sighed as she thought about the handsome man who came into her home that night and stole her heart away. As a 17-year-old girl, she'd never felt this way about anyone until she laid eyes on Troy. Now, It's been a whole year since that memorable night when she met him, and Francina was eager to marry Troy. She was 18, and he was 23, so she was not too young to get married. This was a time when it was the norm for women to wed at a young age, and Francina's family strongly believed that she was old enough to fall in love and marry. In their eyes, she was no longer a little girl. Marco realized this when Troy came over last week and asked for his permission to marry his beautiful, precious daughter. He trusted and loved Troy enough to consider him to be the son that he'd never had. And he eventually offered the young man his blessing to wed Francina. The next day, Martina and Rosa Maria accompanied Troy to the jewelry store to find the most beautiful ring for Francina, which took them an hour until he found the perfect one. When Troy realized how expensive it cost, he was unsure if it was worth it to spend abundant pocket money on a ring that Francina might not appreciate later in life. He was not employed at the moment, so this would pose a potential financial threat. Rosa Maria, giving him a sympathetic smile, suggested, "I suppose it would be better if you could just give her mine instead." She took off her ring and gave it to him. "Her grandfather gave this to me, which I also gave to her mother here. And now I'm giving it to you to give to her. This ring is a symbol of love in our family, and I have no doubt that you'll make her happy." Troy examined the ring before he could accept it. "Are you sure, Signora?" he asked. Rosa Maria nodded in response as a tear fell down her eye. Martina held her mother's hand. She could tell this was an emotional decision for her mother to make, for the sake of her lovely daughter. Martina said, "Real love does not cost anything. The gift you give must come straight from the heart. Francina shall treasure this all the days of her life. This we are certain of." Rosa Maria had brought her ring's jewelry box with her to secure the ring for the time being. The three of them thanked the store owner for her time before they departed, and Troy's decision was set. He was going to propose to Francina that evening during dinner. That evening, Francina was wearing a lovely aqua blue dress, looking as stunning as ever. She was elated to see Troy join her for dinner, for two at her house. And here he was, dressed in a suit and tie. She didn't know it, but he had the ring in his pocket for safekeeping. He would take it out during dessert time, but for now, it was time to enjoy the main course, while a musician that her mother hired played gentle, romantic music on the piano. When it was time for dessert, the maid came to collect their dinner plates so that the cook could serve the tiramisu and panna cotta. Francina's favorite dessert since childhood was panna cotta, so it was a miracle that the cook could read her mind by providing her favorite dessert. The main course wasn't all that bad either. But the dessert was the best part. Troy held Francina's hand and gazed lovingly into her chocolate-brown eyes. "Have I ever told you how beautiful you looked tonight?" he asked in a smooth voice that caused her heart to beat. "You tell me that all the time," she replied with a giggle. "Well, that is the truth, and I'll never let you forget it. I love you, Francina. I can't explain it, but you mean the world to me. I've never met a woman as beautiful as you. I never felt this way about anyone else before, if you can believe it." Francina smiled. She believed it. He was her first and only. "I love you too, Troy. I love to spend time with you. And I love how happy you make my family. Their happiness is important to me, too. Thank you for opening my eyes and my heart to see what true love is. I do what I do best." He grinned as he made his bold move by getting down on one knee and taking out the ring. "And this is the best thing I'll ever do. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Francina. I know your family must think that you're much too young, but for me this feels right. I don't wish to wait a minute longer. Life is short and precious. Precious, just like you." A tear of joy ran down Francina's face. For a second, she thought she was dreaming, but she was not. This was reality. Troy Edwards was really proposing to her. "Troy," she began. "Shh, don't say anything yet. I love you with all my heart, Francina. Your family has been generous and kind to me, especially your father. He gave me his blessing to ask for your hand in marriage. He loves you and is rather protective of you, which is a great thing, because it means that you come from a loving family who want nothing but the best for you. They can agree that I'm the best for you, right? So, what do you say, Francina Tutiliogi? Will you make me the happiest man in the world and be my wife?" Another tear ran down Francina's face as she glanced down at the ring. She recognized it as her grandmother's ring, and it was a family treasure. Rosa Maria had handed it down to Martina, and Martina decided to give it to Troy to give to Francina. Touched by the beauty of the ring, Francina had no choice but to say yes to forever. "Yes, yes, 1,000,000 times yes," she squealed with joy as he put the ring on her finger. Troy announced. She said yes, everybody. Her family arrived in the kitchen to congratulate the young couple. They had organized this dinner so that Francina and Troy could share a private moment with each other as he proposed to her. She just made him the happiest man alive by saying yes. For the rest of the week, after that memorable evening, Francina and her family began preparing for the wedding. Troy's family and friends flew in from England so that they could be there for him. Now, the two families were eager to celebrate their children's eternal bliss. The night before the big day, Francina sat up in bed as she glanced at Troy's photo on her nightstand, reminiscing about the first time she met him, and her fears were eased. Everything was going to be perfect. She woke up in a blissful mood the next morning. A bright and beautiful Saturday. That morning, her family was cheerful as they worked with the photographers and makeup artists to capture as many photos of the bride-to-be as possible. Marco and Giuseppe decided to head to the church to inform the priest that they were getting Francina ready for the occasion. And they stayed in the church with the priest and incoming guests for the ceremony. The women remained in the house with Francina, along with her cousins, for moral support as she wore her elegant, long-sleeved, V-neck lace gown. It was an original, nothing like what her mother, grandmother, or aunts had worn before. Rosa Maria couldn't contain her emotions as she wept at the sight of her stunning granddaughter. She told Francina, "Sei una sposa bellissima. You make a beautiful bride." Francina, flattered by the compliment, gave her grandmother a hug. "Nonna, non piangere. Se piangi, mi farai piangere anche tu." Grandma, don't cry. If you cry, you'll make me cry too. Rosa Maria told Francina that she'd see her downstairs after her cousin, Elisa, helped her with her necklace. After Rosa Maria left, Elisa went to her room to find a more stylish necklace for Francina. In the moment that her cousin and grandmother left, and Francina was alone in her room, Francina went up to the window to open it so that she could get some fresh air in her room. It was supposed to be a very warm afternoon, but then she felt someone shove her in the back, causing her to stumble backward onto the window, shattering it. And she screamed as she fell many feet from the window to the ground. Elisa returned to her room, dumbstruck when she saw the shattered glass, and peered out at her injured cousin on the ground and cried out in terror. Francina, Rosa Maria, and the others came running to the room. "Cosa è successo?" Rosa Maria asked Elisa, seeking to know what happened. Elisa replied, sobbing, "È Francina, è caduta dalla finestra." It's Francina. She fell out the window. Everyone gasped in shock and horror as they came up to the room, glanced at the remains of the broken glass window on the floor. Martina called 911 to report that her daughter had fallen out of the window. She offered to stay behind with Francina until help arrived, while Rosa Maria and the other women volunteered to go to the church to break the shocking news to Marco, Giuseppe, and even Troy. The wedding would have to be postponed for now. Everything happened within minutes. Paramedics came to transport Francina to the hospital, and the family was left reeling from the shocking news. Even Troy was devastated that such an unfortunate thing could happen to the woman that he loved, who he was supposed to share the rest of his life with. Now it wasn't to be. Instead, she was fighting for her life, not knowing whether she would make it or not. The doctors told the family that Francina had suffered significant head injuries and broken bones, so they were going to perform emergency surgery on her to save her life. In the meantime, investigators were around to examine the fall, to determine how she could have fallen out the window. A week later, Francina was in the process of recovering from the surgery, and her family became devoted to caring for her, including Troy. Although they did not get married as planned, he was still determined to take care of her, as if she was his wife. That's how much he loved her, and how much he was willing to stick by her, through the thick and thin, in sickness and in health, for better or worse. The vows he was following before he actually had a chance to say, "I do," to her. A week later, Francina was still in the process of recovery. That night, as she was about to wash her face in the bathroom before heading to bed, she couldn't help but overhear the conversation taking place downstairs in the living room. She heard Elisa sobbing uncontrollably, and the others comforting her. "Va bene, Elisa," Martina reassured her, telling her that everything was going to be okay. "No, non lo è," Elisa replied in between her sobs. "È tutta colpa mia. Ho spinto Francina apposta. Vedi, volevo ferirla, perché sono così gelosa di lei. Ottiene sempre tutto ciò che vuole. E ora sta per sposarsi con un uomo che ama. Non è giusto, perché che mi dici di me? Non posso farci niente se provo così tanto risentimento nei suoi confronti. Per l'amor del cielo, ha solo 18 anni." Elisa had just practically confessed to having pushed Francina out of the window deliberately while her cousin was alone in the room. She was supposed to help Francina put on her necklace, but instead, she ended up pushing her out the window instead. She wanted to hurt Francina, having always been jealous of her for whatever reason, believing that Francina always got everything she wanted, especially now that she was bound to marry the man that she loved, Troy Edwards. Elisa said she couldn't help the resentment that she'd apparently always felt toward Francina, and now she's trying to justify it by saying that Francina's the one getting married at only 18. Elisa was 23, the same age as Troy, and she herself was single and unattached. Men tended to gravitate more toward Francina than to her, or at least that's how she felt. That was a criminal confession in a nutshell. Francina wanted to go down and confront Elisa, but her weakened condition made her too tired to engage in any yelling. She'd yell at her tomorrow. Instead, she gave Troy a phone call to explain everything to him, and she asked him to report this to the authorities the next morning, which he agreed to do. This was her plan of revenge against Elisa, turning her in. When Francina woke up the next morning, Martina offered to help her downstairs to the kitchen for a nice breakfast. She asked her daughter, "Come ti senti stamattina?" wanting to know how Francina was feeling. Sto bene, grazie, mamma, Francina replied, saying that she was feeling fine. Rosa Maria gave Francina her dish of eggs and toast, as well as a cup of orange juice, smiling adoringly at her brave granddaughter, who was handling all this with grace. Grazie mille, nonna. Di niente, amor mio. Rosa Maria gave her a kiss on the forehead to say, "You're welcome, my love." At that moment, there was a knock on the door, and the officers called out for Elisa. Elisa introduced herself to them as they informed her that she was officially charged with assault toward Francina by shoving her out the window. Elisa sobbed, apologizing profusely to Francina and the others, although there was very little her apologies could do now. With delightful smiles, the whole family watched her being escorted by law enforcement. And for the first time in her life, Francina felt victorious toward her bitter, vengeful cousin, who was now going to face the consequences of her terrible actions. A rose-scented Santa Claus. Mrs. Claus doesn't bake cookies. She doesn't prepare any dessert at all, for that matter. Her husband eats enough cookies to last him 1 year on his journey around the globe. Instead, she cracks 5 eggs, 3 for him, 2 for her, spreads butter on toast, tosses a bowl of fruit for them to share, and prepares her husband's favorite, a mug of coffee with frothed reindeer milk and candy cane crumbles on top. It always gives him a nice boost before the annual Christmas soiree, which is hosted by the elves, forever adorers, kiss-asses, another might say, of the man in the red suit. This cup of joe will definitely give him a kick. The clock reads 5:35 a.m. He should be arriving soon, no later than 6, she hopes. If he's on time, their Christmas tradition can go on as usual. In the first 25 years of their marriage, she'd hear the reindeer and their jingling bells land on their cottage's immense sleighway at 6 on the dot. For the last 8 years, he was always 10, 20, even 30 minutes late. Old age, explained the elder elf through the years. She scoffed openly at his comment. 65 was not that old. Last year, Mr. Claus arrived an hour late due to a highly rare reindeer injury. Plight, the Rudolph of the group. There were others with noses to guide the way, but Rudolph was the original, had broken a leg. Before he landed, Mrs. Claus was so distraught by her husband's recurring tardiness that she'd thrown the entire breakfast in the trash and dumped the coffee in the sink. 5:45 now. She should soon be hearing Santa's ho 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 as he slows his sleigh in the sky. She doesn't. But her anger is now water underneath a frozen layer of cool indifference. She grabs the coffee pot and pours 2 cups now, prepares his, then lays it on the pine tree-shaped coaster. 5:50. 6:01. 6:01. She waits at the table, At 6:25, Santa Claus lands. From inside, she hears the elves cheering, clapping, celebrating. No doubt they're all wearing their best elf suits, midnight black and made of pure wool, ready for the party that starts in 45 minutes. Mrs. Claus stopped going out to greet her husband 3 years ago. Old age and whatnot, she told the elder elf with a stiff, sweet smile, whose reply was merely an awkward smile and hesitant nod. Mrs. Claus waits at the circular wooden table on the chair that faces the door of their small cottage. Just a minute later, better to walk past those elves, lest they talk your ear off. The door opens, and in walks the man of the hour. Noel, known to her and some close friends, smiles. She knows what he's going to say next, because it's the same thing he says every year. Mrs. Claus deepens and roughens her voice to imitate her husband as he says, "I can't wait to shave this damn thing off." Noel laughs, and she does too. She still does love this man very much. Nothing, no one, could ever snatch that feeling away from her. Noel loves being Santa. She still remembers the pride on his face, mixed with shock and sudden nerves, when the elf jury chose him for the task. This was way back when he was Noel Fable, and she, Winterfrost, back when they'd only stolen a kiss or two and were too shy to hold hands in public. She'd never imagined she'd be Mrs. Claus, and certainly never thought about how their lives could look 28 years later. They selected him just 1 hour after Nick Claus had passed away at 75. It was, and had to be, a swift process. She'd wondered what it'd feel like if her husband died, and just 60 minutes later, people were lining up to replace him. She also thought about who it'd be. Perhaps Elliot Ryder, the young man who'd fixed up Plight's leg last year. She quite liked Elliot. He was the only one who was honest with her and told her that the only reason Plight would injure his leg, the others left unscathed, would be because he didn't want to land on a certain roof. Despite popular belief, reindeer are not loyal to the man with the bag himself, but rather the cause of Christmas itself. In fact, she too might say that she was dedicated to the cause, if need be. So why wouldn't he want to land? Elliot had asked her. She'd merely shrugged, because that was none of his business. She'd be replaced too, of course. If the new Santa had a honey, then it'd happen immediately. If he was single and ready to jingle, then later. But she'd be stripped of the name Claus and forced to move on. At least she'd get to keep their home and have a comfortable place to grieve. It was a quick and cruel but necessary procedure. Christmas didn't wait for anybody, and the North Pole was legally required to meet those children's demands. "Come sit, my love," Mrs. Claus says, patting the seat of the empty chair beside her. Noel obeys and moves closer to her. Before sitting, he leans in and gives her a sweet kiss on the cheek. The first time that Mrs. Claus smelled roses off his puffy white beard, she didn't question it. The third time, it had made her eyebrows furrow, but they'd had breakfast, and she'd moved on. The fourth time, suspicion came. Only confirmation followed in the next years. A perfume that didn't belong to her, that didn't actually exist on the North Pole at all, where there were only cinnamon, hot chocolate, pine, and other related scents. The tardiness and the incident last year only added to the pile of evidence. He threw in the logs and the kindling. Add a flame, and what else could you get but a fire? The scent now makes her knuckles turn white as snow against the mug's handle. My favorite part of the day, Noel says as he finally sits. He reaches for the coffee cup, and Mrs. Claus only stares with a smile that looks like a sticker someone threw on her face and stuck. It doesn't take one sip. He tells her about his night, skipping over certain details she imagines. Not that she wants to know. And together they eat. She finds that she has no trouble swallowing the eggs, chewing on the toast, even sipping her coffee. Not even when Noel starts slurring his words while talking about the best cookie of the night. She places the mug down with a soft thump as the slurs become choking sounds. She notices drops of milk on his mustache then. He looks at her with a confused expression, and those still gloved hands go to his neck. But Mrs. Claus doesn't move, not even when he calls out for a name that is not her own. The smell of roses is still fresh under her nose when Mr. Claus starts turning purple. Santa falls off the chair, and Mrs. Claus, like any good wife, screams and calls for help on loop. Maverick Kotzen, 12/27/24, on loop. It was less than an hour after my surgery that I realized I would never be able to forgive my surgeon. Merely a week prior, I had walked into my surgeon's office to go over the final details leading up to the procedure, what to eat and drink beforehand, what to not do, and a reiteration of the risks in order to confirm that I really wanted the procedure. Ever since I had fallen off a rock swing and slammed my elbow into a rock, my right arm hadn't been able to move or even bend, leading me to be effectively half as useful as I used to be. The choice to get a full reconstruction of my elbow was not an easy one. The way it had broken, there were far less invasive and safer procedures that were available to me. I was hesitant, but my surgeon took my hand, assured me that it was the best course of action, and said, "It's going to be okay." 3 days before the procedure, my anxiety had only worsened, and my partner had done the best they could to comfort me. They told me that the risks were still low, and that this procedure would return to me the full mobility I had before my life was turned upside down. Friends had reached out, comforting me and wishing me a speedy recovery, as if I had already gone through with the operation. It felt as if I had already been altered, physically and personally, by the procedure, despite not even having the surgery yet. Even my dog knew something was off, as he wagged his tail and snuggled up next to me every night in my bed, instead of sleeping in his dog bed like he always does. It felt like the natural rhythm of my life had been disrupted, and that nothing would ever feel the same way it did. I began to fantasize and romanticize my life before the accident, as if it had been the peak of existence. This, of course, glosses over the struggles I was having earlier that year to pay rent, repair my relationship with my parents, and help a friend through an accidental pregnancy. Through the storm of thoughts, I clutched desperately to the mast of the boat, repeating as the next big wave came to hit me, "It's going to be okay." 2 days before the procedure, the anxiety had not improved, and it was visible on my partner's face that they were clearly worried about me. My despondency when I was asked questions, my inattentiveness when attempting tasks with one arm, and even my lack of appetite were just a few of the worrying symptoms that were beginning to present themselves en masse. Behind my back, my partner was contacting my friends, trying to coordinate some kind of effort to boost my mood, all while I more or less lay in my bed all day, watching daytime television and periodically getting up to use the restroom. In between naps and TV fever dreams, I had flashbacks to all of the warnings from friends and family about the procedure. Are you sure you want to do this? What if you never fully recover? I don't know about this operation. Isn't there a considerable chance they screw up and just have to amputate your arm? I fully support you and your decision, but I want to make sure you've thought it through. These criticisms, at the time, seriously made me reconsider my decision. Ultimately, I decided to stay the course, but the decision to go against the better advice of my friends felt wrong even at the time. The weird and odd feeling of regret that washed over me every time I reassured them and told them I was going through with it only amplified the more people I talked to. Whenever I talked to anyone who knew me, the surgery would sooner or later come up, and I would have to wait during conversation until that dreaded moment came. My friends were with me, surgery or no, but the storm upon which my boat had been sailing only seemed to intensify, as big wave after big wave nearly broke my ship in two. Still clutching onto that mast of hope as thoughts flowed freely in and out of my mind as I lay awake at midnight. It's going to be okay. 24 hours out from the procedure, my anxiety had completely paralyzed me. Even the most basic tasks, like brushing my teeth or going to the bathroom, felt like Herculean tasks that required tremendous effort. I turned off my phone at that point in order to calm my nerves, and had even sworn off television for the day. I just sat in my bed and read some of my favorite books, periodically taking breaks to stare out of the window. The surgery loomed like a dark cloud above my head, ready to rain over my head at any given moment and take full control of my consciousness. It dawned on me at that moment that this procedure, the one I had defended from friends and fought so hard to have, had largely come to define me as a person. At the very least, I had let it define me in many ways. Reflecting on my thoughts at the time, I am now able to see how completely enveloped I had been. Irony, though cruel. For it seemed that despite the fact that my elbow was about to be repaired, a part of me had been damaged in the process. Sure, I was to be fixed physically, but mentally, my anxiety and nervousness had never been higher. As I went to bed that night, the last thought I can remember is a gentle acceptance as the day of the surgery fast approached, and a comforting line: "It's going to be okay." On the morning of the surgery, my surgery, I was woken by my partner early in the morning. They gave me my water bottle, my clothes, and opened the door for me to get into the passenger seat of our car at a bright and sunny 4 a.m. By the time I got to the hospital, all events began to blend together. The reception, the being shown to the bed, and the surgeon's explanation of the preoperative all seemed like a free-flowing dream. The last memory I have right before going under anesthesia is of my partner holding my hand, whispering in a soft, reassuring tone, "It's going to be okay." As I would soon find out, it was not going to be okay. Based on the beginning of my story, you can guess how well my procedure went. 3 hours into the reconstruction of my elbow, a complication caused internal bleeding all throughout my arm. With no ability to stop it, they ended up having to amputate my arm from the elbow down. Upon waking, I felt phantom pain almost immediately, and would continue to feel that way for days after. My surgeon came into the room shortly after I awoke and tried consoling me. There was nothing I could have done. These things just happen sometimes. I'm sorry. Did any of his words even matter? I had held his words dear for so long, and for them to ring hollow in my moment of utmost need was one of the most depressing situations I have ever been in. My partner, in between crying sessions, attempted to reassure me. I heard him begin to say, "Don't worry, no matter what, it's going to be..." Whispers in the Snow. Title: Whispers in the Snow. Emily pressed her forehead against the cold glass of the window, her breath leaving no trace on the surface. Outside, the village lay blanketed in snow, every rooftop twinkling with warm lights. Christmas Eve had always felt quieter since Daniel's death. But this year, the silence pressed harder against her ribs. She ran her fingers along the edges of a faded photograph. Daniel's grin, all teeth and mischief, stared back at her. He was only 17. A car accident on the icy roads. At least, that's what everyone had told her. But no matter how many years passed, Emily could never quite remember the details. Or her mind was forcing her not to. "I wish you were still here," she whispered. The old box of decorations sat half empty at her feet. Relics of past holidays she'd tried to avoid. Digging through it felt more like excavation than preparation. Near the bottom, something cold brushed her fingers. A small pocket watch cracked along the face. Daniel's. It was frozen at 11:58, the time of his death. Emily traced the hands of the watch with her thumb, hesitating for only a moment before winding it. A single tick echoed in the room, her vision blurred, and the world dipped beneath her feet. She stumbled forward, clutching the mantel. When she looked at the clock on the wall, the time read midnight. 2. Emily woke to the sound of something sizzling in the kitchen. The sun cut across the wooden floor, spilling warmth she hadn't felt in years. She pushed herself up, rubbing her eyes. With surprise, she noticed she was still holding Daniel's watch in her hand tightly, as if someone else carefully passed it to her. Her attention shortly moved to her desk side. Her decorations in her room was changed. The old box of decorations on the floor was gone, replaced by a series of drawers. Her desk looked less messy. Her daily makeups and the mirror were gone. There was scent that didn't belong to her. Footsteps moved behind her. "Morning." It's a male voice. Her heart almost stopped beating. She turned slowly. Daniel stood in the kitchen, spatula in hand, flipping eggs, as if this was the most natural thing in the world. The plate slipped from her fingers, shattering across the floor. Daniel glanced over his shoulder, frowning. "You all right?" he asked, stepping forward carefully. "You're acting weird." Emily couldn't breathe. Her legs shook beneath her, but she closed the distance between them, pulling him into a tight embrace. "Daniel," she choked out. You're here." Daniel stiffened for a second before hugging her back. "Where else would I be?" Tears streamed down Emily's face as she buried herself in the scent of him. A mixture of fresh soap and a scent just belonged to him only. No one else did. She could feel him gently tapping her back, but something was different. She pulled back to look at him. His eyes, warm but unfamiliar, lingered a little too long on her face. "I thought..." She shook her head, laughing through her tears. "I thought I lost you." Daniel chuckled softly. "You're not making any sense. Sit down. I made breakfast." She squeezed her cheek and quickly checked her phone screen. It said, Friday, 25th December, 3:03. The snow outside sparkled under the afternoon sun, but Emily barely noticed it. She trailed Daniel through the village, where decorations hung on every door. She had expected people to stare, to question why he was here. But no one said a word. As they passed a bakery, the old woman squinted at them through the window. Her hand paused mid-air as she hung a wreath, but she quickly looked away. Emily squeezed Daniel's arm. "Did you see that?" "See what?" "She was staring at us, like she'd seen a ghost." Daniel simply shrugged. "Maybe she's not used to seeing you out and about." But Emily wasn't convinced. Was it? She was pretty sure she went there a lot. She even went there yesterday, and she said "Merry Christmas" to her before she left. Maybe she was just having a multi-layered dream that she could not easily wake up. If so, she hoped she would never wake up again. Later that evening, she sat on the sofa as Daniel strung lights around the tree. His humming filled the room, soft, rhythmic, but the tune was unfamiliar. "What's that song?" she asked, tilting her head. Daniel didn't stop. "My favorite Christmas song." Emily frowned. "No way. It's not. You always hated Christmas songs. You said your ear would get broken if you listened to them all the time like that." Ike. Daniel paused, blinking. "Right," he said lightly. "Must have slipped my mind." But the humming resumed, louder this time. By the time night fell, Emily couldn't shake the weight in her chest. Something felt wrong. She climbed the stairs quietly, pausing by Daniel's room. The door was cracked open. Inside, Daniel sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. He didn't notice her. His lips moved soundlessly, whispering something she couldn't hear. Emily leaned closer. "Daniel?" His head snapped toward her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. His eyes reflected the faint light from the hallway, dark and unreadable. "Can't sleep," he muttered, brushing past her as he slipped out. Emily stood frozen in the doorway. She glanced back at his room, at the photo resting on his nightstand. Her breath caught. The photograph was the same one from the mantel, but her face had been scratched out. Emily's hands trembled as she flipped through the old diary she'd found in the attic. The entries were hers, but she didn't remember writing them. The final entry read, "I miss him. Maybe if I wind the clock tonight, things will be different." The next page was blank. Footsteps sounded behind her. She turned sharply to see Daniel standing at the bottom of the attic stairs, the soft glow of the tree lights casting shadows across his face. "Looking for something?" he asked. "Why is my face scratched out of the photos?" Emily demanded, holding the diary close. "What's happening to me?" Daniel stepped forward slowly, his expression unreadable. "I didn't want to tell you," he said softly. "I thought it would be easier if you didn't remember." "Remember what?" Daniel's voice cracked as he said, "You didn't come back, Emily. Not completely." The diary slipped from her hands. "You died 5 years ago," Daniel whispered. "The same night as me." Emily stumbled back, the room spinning. Her reflection in the window, always faint, always delayed, finally faded to nothing. In the silence, Daniel placed the pocket watch on the floor. "I'm sorry," he said. But you shouldn't be here. Emily couldn't remember when he got the watch. Even this morning, the watch was with her. She tried to open the window to wake herself up. It's been a longest dream ever in her life. Then she noticed her hand slowly passed through the window frame. The snow fell quietly as Daniel stood in the graveyard, gazing at the headstone. Emily, beloved sister, died Christmas Eve 5 years ago. A single set of footprints trailed behind him in the snow. Memory of the future. Ed is looking down the cliff, watching the waves crashing on the beach. Same place he was when his baby brother went missing. His parents never spoke of it, like he never had a sibling. It is a summer night. Goes inside for dinner. No one says a word, same as usual. Ed does the dishes. His dad buries himself on the couch in front of the TV, and Mom goes to her room. Another boring evening at the Wallaces. Maybe all the answers to all of our questions are out there in the dark forest. Ed pushes aside a twig from a tree with his left hand to look ahead. It is so dark. He knows he is naked. Why would he? He wonders. It is freezing. Now he is elsewhere, in front of a shed. On the other side, he simply knows there are 3 beings, which could pass off as triplets, all looking the same, except the one in the middle seems to be a female. They are facing the wall that takes to the woods. Their oval heads are almost a triangle with a pointy chin. The nipples of the both males have a pyramidal shape. The females are round. The 3 of them appear to be wearing a silvery overall, orange latex gloves up to their elbows, some work boots. Only those aren't brown or black, but in the same silvery tone. Or are they? Their actual feet. They got only 2 toes, the eyes completely white, no pupils or lids, and pointy ears, like they were elves from a fairy tale. They seem 2 albinos, the skin so white. They are staring at Ed like the shed was gone. He can also see them clearly. The walls appear invisible. Ed doesn't know what to do. No matter, though, because he suddenly realizes even if he wanted to move or scream or run, he couldn't. They wouldn't let him. Ed is back in bed. Was it a dream? Whatever it was, he can tell inside that shed there was a time machine. A young boy went there every night to build it, so he could get back the girl that ditched him. He was too. A lone one. Ed goes to school like it's any other day. Does not pay attention in classes. He looks out the window and sees the boy that built the time machine. He is a mysterious one, skipping stones at some lake. Back home, Ed is sitting on the grass, next to the cliff, still with those 3 beings on his mind. He wonders who they were and where. Where did they come from? And why? What could they possibly want with him? Ed takes a shower, same as every afternoon. after he is done with his homework. And before they have dinner, he is finished cleaning up, and water is running down his body. He goes to open the curtain to get out, but he opens some kind of vortex. He can see a galaxy light years away. In the middle, a throne with a Nordic woman with her child in her arms. As soon as he looks into the woman's eyes, he's back in his bathroom, all silent at the table, barely looks at his plate during dinner, let alone touching his food. His parents eat and leave as usual. His thoughts still on that woman and the throne and those three beings he saw the other night. Once on his bed, pulls the sheets up to cover his body, and something gets his attention. There is a huge man on the corner, both hands hugging his knees, showing some concern on his face. Wearing a robe and sandals, must be at least 13 feet tall. Turns around and looks into Ed's eyes. Ed wonders what troubles the giant. The boy that built the time machine pops into both their heads, or into the man's. But Ed can see it clearly, as if he himself was seeing the boy, carrying a box with tools, walking to the shed every night. He must have really loved that girl. Ed is certain he wasn't dreaming when he saw the giant, and neither is he now. The boy has been going to the cemetery in the middle of the night for several weeks, desecrating more than a few graves. Now he's put together a body from parts of some of the corpses he's dug up, and next to the body, he's put a photo of the girl who left him, in the hopes that some part of her essence will enter the empty vessel. As some modern Frankenstein, he intends to give life to the body by means of electricity. Ed sees himself pulling the lever, but before he can find out if it worked, if the body is alive, he appears to jump through time. Now Ed is in 1978, June 6th, almost the 7th, as he looks at his watch and it's 11:50 p.m. The date he sees in a page of a journal flying by, carried out by the wind. He is in a city destroyed by a nuclear war, which never happened. Not in this reality, anyway. Ed sees the boy jumping through time and space once again. What was once a bouquet of flowers rests next to a long forgotten grave. That is all we can expect in life. When we go, our loved ones will mourn us and cry for some time, recalling memories with us, but not too long. They learn to move on and leave us behind, to forget. Ed just knows the boy was never born, not in this reality. The boy just wanted peace and kept himself from being born. There is no grave, no tomb, no resting place for the boy. He is now at peace, wherever he may be. From out of nowhere, a girl appears. As white as snow her skin is, dark as ebony her long hair. There is no exit for her. She's on the edge of the precipice, a man getting closer, no options left. To live or to be free, that's the end of the road for the girl. She jumps to her own demise, feeling like she cab fly for a few seconds, and then the sea. She turns into sea foam. She appears to be floating on the ocean, feeling but peace and quiet. Another man comes into the scene. He was on the beach and comes to the girl. He looks into her blue eyes. Suddenly, it is Ed looking into those eyes, and then it's the firmament and the cold space. It starts raining, and Ed can see the drops falling to floor, and the tombs, the cemetery again. The abandoned and long-forgotten grave's tombstone reads, Corolla Duval. Was it all a dream? Is Ed wondering when he starts an astral travel? Feels himself leaving his body, only it's not him, but a boy he's seen before. Somewhere in dreams, perhaps. Ed sees the boy getting back in his body as three tall beings with elephant-like skin stand next to him. Those beings have rat-gray skin, huge black eyes, no iris or retina, just pupil, no nose, no mouth, oval heads. The boy covers his head with the sheets, hoping they will leave soon. Now Ed finds himself in his own room, his head covered, those beings next to him. Through the sheets, he can see blue lights and begins floating above his bed. And now he is the one hoping they leave. Ed wakes up a little dizzy and having no idea what that all was. When did they leave? Did they do something to him? He takes a shower, gets downstairs, and grabs a glass with orange juice and goes to school. Again, he pays no attention to his class or classmates. During lunch, sitting with his friends, they are all laughing and talking, and he's just gone. He remembers when the last pandemic happened. He dreamed of a guy meeting three shadowy figures. Never gave it much thought, but now he wonders if that was a dream at all. And is it somehow related to what he's been seeing in dreams? Are you here? Asks his mom, when once again he hasn't touched his food. He's playing with his fork and some peas. He found himself staring at a girl in some Greek ruins. Ed goes to bed early. He is staring at the ceiling, not thinking of anything. He doesn't even notice when he falls asleep. Or is he? Through the corner of his right eye, he sees three green-skinned beings, 4 feet tall, tops. They were there a second before. Now, they're gone. It is 3:15 a.m. And he falls asleep once more. He is just a child, 4, 5 years old, playing in the park, his mom holding his baby brother's hand. Now his mom goes to the ice cream truck while he watches his brother. It is now late and dark, all three of them walking home. His dad is there, waiting for them, and those 3 eye beings in front of them, his baby brother, they take with them. And his parents never talked about him again, like he never existed. He didn't exist, not in this reality, anyway. The female being speaks, or rather, prints it on Ed's mind. They do not move their mouths. Your brother has a bigger fate, speaks the being on the left. How can you, asks Ed inside his head. We can see your thoughts, says the being on the right. And you can see ours, adds the one on the left. You had no sibling in this life. That's a memory of another reality, said the female, and now he's here again, looking down the cliff, watching the waves crashing on the beach. Same place he was when his baby brother went missing. Or at least, that's what Ed would remember, the cemetery's keeper. There once was a man, and he used to be known as the cemetery's keeper. He would wash the stones and make the graves intact with new paint jobs and flowers. He would be seen sitting down talking to the stones. While he ate his lunch, it was a different stone each day. Everybody thought he was creepy. He wore black every day, like he was about to attend a funeral. A full suit and tie. Even in the summer, he would watch everyone from afar that went past, especially those who came in. He would hide near the trees and light up a cigarette. You could hear him choke from a mile away. That's how everyone knew he was there. The coughing. He helped the community by doing his job and keeping it clean, but he would never get recognized for it. It was a hard job. Nobody knew his family. They knew he was watching them. He hung around the graveyard at night to stop the youngsters from vandalizing the stones. But he had to be careful, as they were loud and in groups, and could possibly be holding a weapon. He would just scrub it off when they left. Until one day, some youngish kids came by and smashed up all the gravestones and tried to dig to find the coffins and the bodies inside. The next day, he was found dead, lying among the gravestones, with his head in a bucket of water, what he was cleaning with. Whoever it was drowned him, and they had a purpose. There was a rumor going around saying that he hurt some children, but that was a lie. I'm Detective Susan Baker, and I took over this case. Two things were obvious, one being the fact that this was foul play. The other, I think I know who did it, and I needed him to confess. This fella I speak of has just gotten out of prison for murdering someone 5 years ago. He only got 5 bloody years. Pathetic from the justice system's side. But nobody showed up at court for him. His record was clean. He had never done a bad thing in his entire life. He had strangle marks around his neck. When I found him, he was cold. He had been beaten before he drowned. The coroner said he was definitely strangled to death. He had knife marks on his rib cages and a big one marked on his throat. Whoever killed him really wanted him to die. They collected the DNA and matched it with the strangle marks. Whoever it may have been left dirty scratch marks. With the gunk left under their nails, we found a match, just who I thought it was. The man has just gotten out of jail, and he got bail to his mother's house. He had nowhere else to go. He had a big group of friends that committed crime all over the area. The crime rate was bad without them. Hopefully, my partner, Sir John, and I could take down who did it today. It was going to be a long one, which meant that we wouldn't be with our families today, which was Christmas Eve. I wasn't expecting that. The boss said we could go, but once again, we had to protect the city. I put up so many Christians' lights this year, hoping to not have them vandalized too. During the festive holidays, the people in my area too would go absolutely nuts, screaming, fighting, punching on doing drugs, hard drugs, might I add, drug dealers on each corner. The lowest act was burning someone's house down on Christmas Eve, leaving them with nothing. In this area, this has unfortunately happened on a regular basis, due to mainly domestic violence or vandalism, the occasional break-in. I've gotten a few bravery awards due to taking down a man with a gun and saving someone from committing suicide. My partner is my mentor. He is a good bloke, tough, well-built. It was time to search for more clues. Maybe we will find footprints or something leading to the murder area. As we arrived in the darkness, we heard more youngsters roaming about and obviously destroying the headstones. We turned our flashlights on and pulled out our badges. They were horrified, stopped in their tracks. "We need the names of all of you. Now," my partner said with a scary tone. About an hour later, we had all their names. They were finally going to be charged with vandalism. Each kid had to pay for the damage that they did, with their protective parents. Each of them got a fine of $1,000. Each made payment plans. I wondered who would take over the graveyard now, or would they just let it overgrow? The graveyard overgrown. It had been about a month since he passed away. The stones were dirty, vines growing in every direction. We interrogated the fella that I thought it was, but he would not confess, even though we found his DNA on the man's neck. He said the old man kissed me, and I put my hands on his throat, but he didn't die. Last time I saw him, he was alive. I didn't kill him. I knew that was a lie, because the old man didn't go near anybody, because they could be armed with a weapon. We found a couple of footprints. We matched it with the same shoes, but he still would not confess, even after a violent interrogation. We showed him pictures of the old man's crime scene. He looked away. We made sure that we got a warrant out for his arrest. We found the murder weapon after a big search in the creek. He had dumped it in there. He had no remorse. He had his poker face on. He was put in a cell for attempted murder up until his court hearing. Shattered truths. In week 52, The little town already shimmered with the anticipation of festivities. Strings of twinkling lights adorned street corners, their glow reflected in the frosted windows of small houses. The air was somehow alive with the scent of candied almonds, cinnamon, and vanilla, sweet bakeries waiting to be shared. Yet amidst this explosion of life and light, Henrik remained unmoved in his own house. Only now did he notice the splinters on the frames of the old windows. It irritated him. How could one have lived in a place for so long and never discover something as provocative as that? 30 years in the same house, married to a woman named Bente. She never had much interest in cleaning like most women her age had. Henrik looked up from the bed where he rested his body in the afternoon. Naps like these started to occur more often than before. Probably age, or hell knows why. The door was open, and he could see the light from the lamp in the kitchen. Very faint, but just enough to see clearly. When was the last time he changed the light bulbs? Or maybe the last time he did that? Maybe 4 years ago? Or 6? Henrik got up and walked around the house for a moment until he saw the old plates. Small teacups were there too. They had gathered dust over time. Why did she even collect them when she didn't even polish them? Wasn't that something you do when you collect all sorts of crap? Henrik took his box with pills and swallowed a handful of them with lukewarm water, and then grabbed his cigarette box. As the flame flickered to life and touched the tip of his cigarette, the first inhale hit him with a rush of warmth, pulling him out of the heavy fog of his sadness. The bittersweet wave of nostalgia washed over him, carrying flashes of his younger years, when the world was a vast, untamed promise, each day unwritten and brimming with possibilities. Now, every movement was deliberate, every breath a reminder of the disease that gripped his body, unraveling him piece by piece. The cigarette trembled in his unsteady fingers, a cruel contrast to the steady, unbroken rhythm of his past, when his hands had been strong and his future limitless. Henrik looked up at the cupboard with the plates. He no longer spared them a glance, knowing they wouldn't remain in his house much longer. The small glass doors of the cupboard did not bother to open. "Come on!" He got angry and used all his strength to open the cupboard until it gave out. Glass bounced and flew all over the place, and a small piece flew into his face. A second later, a small cup fell, adding china to the glass artwork on the ground. "Well," said Henrik, "Bente will take care of that." For a minute, Henrik wondered where she might be. But then a sudden thought struck him. Probably anyone with self-respect would be willing to spend more quality time away from his miserable presence. Carefully, as much as he could, Henrik took the plates and cups and put them down in a cardboard box. He put on his jacket and shoved the keys in the pocket of his leather jacket. It has been a few years since he didn't drive, not that he didn't know how to. So he headed walking, went out to Red Cross shop, and handed the ladies at the counter the filled cardboard box without saying a word. Henrik stepped out into the street and saw that it was beginning to get dark. He gave a sigh of relief, as if that particular china was a burden that added more weight to his heavy enough life. It was past 3 in the afternoon, and the clouds were long and transparent. When was the last time he went out for a walk? Not recently, for sure. It was too unbearable to look at all these energetic people. Energetic enough to laugh and move around, with no rollators, and accompanied by themselves only. Each step now felt like a quiet triumph. The rhythm of his feet against the pavement was a soothing reminder that, despite the tremors and stiffness, Henrik was still moving forward, and this helped to refresh his mind. The crisp air brushed against his face, and for a moment, the simple act of walking became a victory over the weight of his condition. After about 15 minutes, Henrik walked in the dark until he saw a neon sign. He had forgotten his glasses at home, but the word bodega was big enough to read. He entered in the cozy, time-worn charm. Its low beams and dimly lit interior soaked with the stories of decades past. Henrik used to come more often, but the last time he had beer in the bodega was when his son turned 18 and the whole family celebrated. Henrik looked around to choose a spot. Faded photographs and vintage beer ads adorned the smoke-stained walls, while mismatched chairs and well-worn tables lent the space some hygge-lig, unpretentious air. A faint aroma of beer mingled with the occasional smell of fried food, as locals leaned on the polished but scuffed wood counter, exchanging jokes over clinking glasses. Henrik felt strange. There was only a small group of people, and the whole room smelled of something naggingly recognizable. Henrik sat down next to a lone man. Both were silent. Only their bodies felt close enough to feel each other's hollowness. Jens could hear Kim's "In a Little While" playing, and turned to the guy for some small talk. Aren't pleasantries often a way to save ourselves from being engulfed by awkward solitude? The man looked much younger. Henrik saw him drinking from a small porcelain cup, like the ones he just left off earlier. Funny, Henrik thought, and forced his eyes to focus more. He noted he wasn't a man at all. He was a teenage boy with tears in his eyes. "Are you okay, my boy?" "What's going on?" Henrik asked. The boy didn't answer, but turned around, revealing a deep gash reaching from his left shoulder to his lower back. Henrik's eyes widened. The boy stopped smiling, and his somber look turned into a gunta, empty expression. He collapsed to the ground with a heavy thud. Henrik noticed that the boy had a guars on the inside of his jacket. He grabbed it abruptly without anyone noticing. Henrik didn't have his phone with him, so he asked one of the people in the bar to call the police and pointed to the body. When Henrik opened the door, the wind blew in his face. Rain poured in, and the weather was completely different from just a couple of minutes ago. The sky was entirely black, and the sounds of screams were coming from the distance. Henrik was following the whales, not actually sure where he was heading to. He had almost reached home when he saw two individuals in front of his neighbor's house. They looked like thieves, and when he fixed his gaze, he saw they had weapons in their hands and looked dangerous. They were murderers. Henrik stepped back and was about to hide behind a large willow tree when they noticed him. Henrik took the boy's gun and readied to fire. To his surprise, the gun was empty, and he panicked. Henrik could hear his own snorting breath over the wind. He couldn't run. He couldn't hide. So he just sat quietly on the ground, putting the gun down in despair. Henrik saw a red car driving up the dirt road. It stopped so suddenly that it skidded and slid into the nearby ditch. Henrik felt the weight of his decisions and his fractured memories pressing down on him. His life had been a blur of rancor, loneliness, and regret. But now it was ending in chaos while the sirens grew louder and armed men scooted closer. The middle-aged woman who came with the red car, Bente, rushed toward Henrik, screaming at the officers who found an unarmed ill man announced missing. "You're late," Henrik muttered, closing his eyes and lying on the grass. But now it seemed she didn't hear him. He got lost twice last week. Again, without the phone. Everything started to fall apart after we lost our young love, uttered Bente through tears while they were lifting Henrik and heading to the ambulance. The two people, his neighbors, helped Bente to collect a few scattered pieces of china, and no one knew why Henrik had a porcelain loop handle around his ring finger. Toodle-oo. Mayor Ottentail, Arizona, 1875. Painter, the man known throughout town only by his profession, rolls onto his back, letting out a phlegmy cough, skin and bones, with one sad gray eye and the other covered by a patch and sporting a bushy brown beard and the remnants of a rumpled suit. Painter possesses immense talent. He's created numerous portraits and landscapes, as well as the risque painting of Painted Lady Queen Winona that hangs over the Wild Weed Saloon's bar. But he drinks away what money he makes. "I'm letting you out," so you can enjoy Mayor Ottentail's 3-day birthday celebration, Marshal Cy Kincaid says, a towering, authoritative figure with a deep voice and rugged looks. 35-year-old New Hampshire native Cy is assisted in his duties by his 33-year-old Biloxi-born deputy Van Sickle, whose droopy mustache, short, skinny frame, and lack of education belie his courage. It's bad enough this rat trap town is named after him, Painter says. The only thing that blathering weasel deserves is a birthday cake with a stick of dynamite in it. You're off your mental reservation. For somebody who's only been here a year, you sure formulated a deep dislike for the mayor, Van notes. It ain't 'cause he's a southerner, is it? 'Cause if it is, you and me gonna have a tussle. Painter pulls his rumpled vest into place. No, it's who he is. He's been mayor here for 7 years, Cy says. 7 prosperous years. He helped start the bank and sank his own role into the general store and the livery stable. He hired us to protect the town. He's talked up your skills as an artist and sent you business. Just because he teases you once in a while about your liquor intake doesn't make him a bad man. You ought to kiss his feet. I've got something else he can kiss. Chad, exiting the town hall, Mayor Druce Ottentail surveys the town's crowded streets. Banners are stretched between buildings, saying, "Happy birthday to our beloved mayor," and "Happy 40th, Mayor Ottentail." Salesmen hawking remedies, clowns handing out candy, peddlers selling silks, and stalls offering games of skill line the streets. Druce grumbles when he sees his wife posing for a portrait. Opal Ottentail is noted for her pale, delicate looks. She is also witty, erudite, knowledgeable, and caring. Qualities missing in Druce, who is viewed as all business, as suggested by his reedy build, stern features, beady eyes, tidy mustache, and refined southern accent. Really? In the street? You're treating the First Lady of Ottentail like a common harlot. Painter puts his brush down on the easel. I don't have a studio, Ottertail. Druce pulls his wife to his side. Well, you need to get one, you disgusting Yankee vagabond. Until you do, stay away from Opal. Who ever heard of a one-eyed painter? And in the future, the name's Ottentail, and you'll address me by my title. Yes, Mayor. Druce's pallid features burn crimson. He takes a threatening step toward Painter, but is pulled back by Cy. Van positions himself between them. I never seen 2 men who can get each other's goat more than you 2. Look around you, Mayor. Look at the banners, the balloons, and the stalls selling cards and buttons with your name and face on them, celebrating your birthday. You don't want to spoil all this by picking a fight with Painter. It's about time my husband was feted, don't you think? Opal beams as Druce pulls her away. Yes, ma'am. Van replies, giving Cy a queer side glance. She just say something about the mayor smellin' bad? Van asks. 6 men on horseback trot past. The burly lead rider locks eyes with Cy. That's Jack Aker. I'd say our peaceful celebration just went to seed, Van comments. Cha. Aker and his gang tie their horses up at the Wildweed Saloon. Jack Aker takes a long, scornful look at Cy and Van before joining the rest of the gang inside. Born in Massachusetts, the Aker brothers served in the Union Army during the war. Afterward, they were guards for the Northeastern Railway until they realized that robbing trains was easier and more profitable than guarding them. Wearing a perpetual frown across his sunburnt features, 44-year-old Jack Aker is crafty and murderous. Unlike his brothers, Jack is educated and prefers swindling to shooting. A ladies' man before the war, 37-year-old Lon Aker is sensitive about the angry red scar that runs from his forehead to his chin. 30-year-old Boston Belly Aker is an imposing 6'6" and unafraid to use his size to get what he wants. Riding with the Akers are their scruffy 17-year-old cousins, Les and Stanley Tremaine, who have fallen in love with the outlaw life. Them hard cases is here for one thing, skullduggery, Van says. 6 again 2. The odds ain't stacked in our favor. Maybe we can reduce them and nip this situation in the bud. That tall dandy in the black duster and the stovepipe hat, that's Cack Bruder. He's wanted for killing a man in Stiffgate that he claimed dealt from the bottom. Let's send him back there. Drawing his gun, Cy confronts Bruder at the faro table. Party's over. You've got a hanging to attend. Yours. The Tremaine brothers brandish Bowie knives. Van swings the shotgun in their direction. Really, children? Behave, boys, Jack says. Belly. Aker slowly rises. You gotta go through me to get him. Van points the shotgun at Belly. This'll go through you faster'n spoiled milk. Jack pulls his brother back into his chair. Turn your steam down, Boston. You shouldn't treat visitors who've come here to spend their money and join your celebration like this, Marshall. Is that why you're here, Jack? Cy asks. It's not to rob the bank, steal some strumpet's pay, or gun somebody? No, and maybe. Jack replies, smirking. Well, there's going to be one less of you to do it, Cy replies. Come on, Cack. Bruder raises his hands. You gonna help me out, Jack? We know a Jim Dandy lawyer in Stiffgate, Jack replies. Don't worry, Cack, Lon adds. If we can't free you legally, we'll blast you out as soon as we're through here. But don't worry. Any witness to your shooting who gets a good look at Belly's gonna forget what he saw. Cy motions Cack toward the door. You're starting out on the wrong foot, Marshall. I was about to say the same thing, Jack. Lon turns to Jack as Cack is led away. We just lost our best shooter. That doesn't change what we came here to do. Van picks at his teeth with a toothpick. That was what you call a gourmet lunch. We ought to do that more often. As often as my wallet can take, Deputy. Tilting his head, Van asks, what in tarnation is that noise? Sounds like a drum beat. But the parade's not till later, Cy answers. The pair follow the sound. which leads them to the town hall. Painter is marching back and forth in front of the building, banging on an old drum. Druce exits the building. Shaking his fist at Painter, he rushes to the lawmen's side. "Arrest him!" Sai scratches his head. For what? Bad rhythm? Disturbing the peace. He's a menace. Since when did a drum become a dangerous weapon? Van questions. Just tell him to vamoose. I'm trying to close a deal to bring the railroad here, but he's ruining my chance. You mean our chance, right, Mayor? Sai asks. Do your job, or you'll be looking for another one. Druce huffs, retreating inside. Van whistles. Guess some folks is still fighting the war. Later that afternoon, Painter is plying his craft outside the Wild Weed Saloon. Try not to squirm, Pearl, Painter says to his subject. Why? This ain't no photograph. Painter looks at Pearl, then back at his painting, hoping the tough cook will be happy to see herself without the pockmarks and missing teeth that mar her coarse appearance. Passing by, Druce glances at the portrait, muttering, "Ugly as a mud fence." "You say something, Your Majesty?" Pearl asks, making a fist. "Just how lovely you look. I can't believe they's holding a celebration for you. You four-flusher," Pearl says. "Sounds like she knows you well." Painter comments. Several townspeople gather around the portrait to gawk at it as Pearl raises her voice. "My husband, Maitland, rest his soul, fought off the Apaches to help bring this town into being. He don't get no parade, no fireworks, no banners. All you done, Druce, is claim his accomplishments for your own, while keeping your hand in the town's treasury till." The spectators glare at Druce, who smiles sheepishly. Jack and Lon join the crowd, throwing their arms around Druce. "Howdy, Mayor," Jack says, smirking. "Yeah, remember us?" Lon asks, running his finger down his scar. Druce breaks away from them, bumping into Sai. "These scallywags are causing trouble," he gasps. "We're just two slightly lubricated visitors, admiring the work of an artiste," Lon comments. Druce backs further away, his unblinking stare still riveted on the acres. "You know those two yahoos?" Sai asks. "Yes, they know me, and I know what they want to do to me. You have to get them out of town before they kill me." "He's been sampling the spiked punch," Lon says. "They haven't done anything," Sai notes. "Not yet. When they do, my death will be on you, Marshal," Druce shouts, hurrying off. "Dramatic, ain't he?" Lon comments. The following morning, Druce bursts through the jail's door, shoving a piece of paper in Sai's face. "What's the meaning of this?" Sai gives the page a cursory glance, passing it on to Van. "Looks like a wanted poster with your name on it. Something you're not telling us, Mayor. Did you read it?" "Yep. It says you're a war criminal. The drawing is a nice likeness of you, too." "I'm not a war criminal." "Well, somebody thinks you are. There's a dozen of them posted up and down Main Street. My birthday celebration, my name, my reputation are in question." Sai narrows his gaze. "Just what did you do during the war, Mayor?" Druce clears his throat. I was behind the lines. He had it easy while Yoon and me was taking pot shots at each other." Van jokes. "It was never easy. The filth, the rats, the lack of supplies. Watching Natchez burn. You was stationed in Natchez? Van asks. I ran the prisoner of war camp there. Van clenches his fists, his breath exiting in fitful bursts. You sick son of a gun. You took pleasure out of starving and torturing soldiers. The Yankees took their anger out on us because of the way you mistreated their men. You're a disgrace to the uniform of the Confederate States Army. You murdering cur. Why don't you go take down the fake wanted posters, Van? Cy suggests. Why? They're true. Git. Van spits at Druce's feet, storming out. He fought on your side, Druce. I can't imagine how the Union prisoners feel about you. What went on in that camp? We had no water supply, no food, unsanitary conditions, and 20,000 prisoners. Most of them died from scurvy and dysentery. In the summer, we lost 100 a day to the heat. When one man died, another took his rotting rags. The prisoners were always trying to escape, so we had to resort to extreme methods. Anyone who got too close to the fence was shot. The boys, the drummer boys, they weren't going to survive anyway. So, you murdered them? I don't expect you to understand, Cy. It was war. When the armistice was signed, I was tried for war crimes and acquitted. Jack and Lon Acre were two of the prisoners who attended the trial. They swore vengeance, that I'd pay someday, and they are here to collect. Standing at the side of the podium, Cy elbows Van, pointing at the Acre gang. The gang has gathered near the front of the podium, so Druce can see their taunting smiles. Druce pecks Opal on the cheek. Shuffling papers, he begins his speech. The war against the states was hell, he says, looking at Jack and Lon Acre. Each of us lucky to survive left a piece of us behind on some battlefield, some hospital, or some prison, Jack shouts. I still wake up in a cold sweat at nights, yelling the names of the Union soldiers I had to kill. You mean murder? Jack grumbles. He doesn't have nightmares. He gave them to us, Lon adds. An eerie silence permeates as the crowd waits for a stunned Druce to respond. The crowd jumps, then laughs as a succession of firecrackers explode near the stand. Druce cringes behind the podium. Realizing he's unharmed, he slowly rises, grinning nervously. Opal lies on the floor next to him, writhing in pain. Who would want to hurt my wife? Druce asks. Not Opal? You? Cy grimly declares. She was lucky, though. The bullet passed right through her arm. You think they were aiming for me, after what you told me? Yep. We found a rifle across the street in a second-floor room of the hotel. It's a standard Henry rifle used by soldiers. It could be owned by any one of us, including the Acres. I remember seeing Acre and his boys. They were standing in front of us, Druce says. Looks like you got more enemies than we thought, Mayor. That evening, Druce sways as he sits atop the bar, his storytelling embellished by the strength of the liquor he's been drinking for the past several hours. It's about time the mayor ran out of yarns and out of steam, Van says. I'm tired of babysitting this blatherskite. and having to stick him like a leech. Sai scans the room. It's the last night of his celebration. He's going to suck as much flavor out of the moment as he can. I just wish he'd picked a less public place to do it in. And we had those blue bellies trapped in the valley. It was a turkey shoot. The doors swing open. Jack Aker and his gang saunter in. Jack acknowledges Painter with a nod, quickly moving on. The Tremaine brothers thread through the crowd, moving to Druce's right side, while the Aker brothers gather left of the mayor. I could hear Dixie coming from the band. How could you hear it above the screams of the prisoners you tortured? Lon asks. Oh, he could, brother, Jack says. Because they don't write songs about cowards. Toodle-oo, Mayor, a gunshot echoes throughout the barroom. A bullet buries itself in the pillar next to Druce's head. Sai pushes Druce off the bar. Druce falls behind it, curling up underneath it, out of everyone's sight. Sai notices that none of the Akers have drawn their weapons. Growling like a mad beast, Belly swats everyone in his path aside. Grabbing Sai, he puts him in a bear hug, crushing him. Let me go, Belly. Sure, when you're dead. Reaching for his gun, Sai jams it between them, firing 3 shots. Belly releases him. Backing away, he laughs at the blood spurting from his chest as he falls face first. Jack and Lon reach for their guns. Lon fires at Sai. His 2 bullets strike Le Tremaine, killing him as he runs in front of Sai in an attempt to escape. Stanley Tremaine reaches for his Bowie knife, intent on throwing it at Sai, but a sea of panicking customers knocks the blade from his hand, and he's pushed out the back door. He doesn't return. Sai fires 2 shots at Lon, who drops his gun, falling backward. Hiding behind a pillar, Jack hits Van on the forearm with a slug from his Colt. Cradling his shotgun, Van returns fire, splintering the pillar. A second blast blows a now exposed Jack off his feet. Druce greets Sai on the street the next morning. They watch a crew of men pulling down banners and sweeping up the celebration's confetti. How's Aker? Gut shot, and about ready to join his brothers in the mortuary. I'm going to Doc's office to see him now. I hate to owe a Yankee, but thank you, Marshal. It's nice not to have to look over my shoulder anymore. I'm so happy. I think I'll have that reprobate painter paint my portrait. Toodle-oo. Jack grabs Sai's hand as the pain sears through his body. You know what I regret most? That a Reb finished me. You carried the pain of being in Ottentail's prison for 10 years. Why try to kill Druce now, Jack? We were paid to create a ruckus during the mayor's speech. The man who hired us decided he was going to kill Ottentail. He shot Ottentail's wife by mistake. Then, he wanted to kill Ottentail while he was drunk in the saloon. He missed again. Everybody, including you, thought me or one of my brothers had pulled the trigger, so Belly decided to act first. He should have left the killing to us. Who hired you? Jack wheezes heavily. A broken man. He was a prisoner with Lon and me in Natchez. He was a clean-cut, handsome kid, a drummer boy during the war, never even shot a gun. I almost didn't recognize him when he rode into our camp last year, all thin and grizzled. Ottentail had made an example of him, whipped him, stuck a hot poker in his eye, and left him for dead. The Rebs buried him alive outside of the camp. He dug his way out and crawled back to the Union line. The loud report of a shotgun blast sounds in the street. Opal's scream sends Cy scrambling to the window. "Help! Painter just shot my husband."